Okay guys, today's video is going to be on web-based interfaces and how you set them up and get them to work. Before I go into that though, I wanted to give a quick history of the previous versions of this connection that we used in the past and we still use to this day, to kind of give you a progression and show you how these work. Starting off with the old school, when we had old equipment that relied on RS-232 connections, we would use a program like a Hyperterm or other kind of terminal emulator, where we're just using the device as a keyboard and a video monitor, and embedded inside the device would be a program that would display the graphics on the screen and generally give you like a selection of options of hit 1 to 9 to do different things. But and as you would hit the keyboard, it would go through the RS-232 back to the device, where it would interpret that keystroke and then do whatever it needed to do after that. But all the intelligence in that communications would be located in the device itself, embedded, programmed on a chip inside that device. The terminal would have no intelligence whatsoever. So that's an example of one of the original programs. Then when we upgraded, and the next kind of technology we would experience would be something like for the two-way radio here, where we're using a USB cable to connect to a laptop, and on the laptop, instead of having a terminal emulation program, we would have a pre-installed proprietary program running on the hard drive in the PC itself, so that when it connected to the device, it would only need to get small chunks of stored data in the device to populate the screens, but all the intelligence would be in the program on the computer itself. And if you didn't have the program, you couldn't access the device. So that was the next generation of communications. And then we've come to our next step, which is kind of we go forward but yet step back, which is a device like this, the Telex IP-223, that has an embedded web page inside the device that has all the intelligence on it. And in this particular case, we're going to be using the computer once again as essentially a terminal emulation. But it'll come in the form of, we'll be using a web browser like Firefox or Explorer or any of those kind of web browsers, and we'll be connecting to a web page inside the device, where it's actually a programmed inside a chip inside the device that simulates a web page. So when you're looking at it, you think you're connected to the internet and you're looking at some distant internet page. Well, what you're really looking at is the embedded web browser inside the device that's designed to fake you out and make you think that you're looking at something on the internet when you're not. So this is the new rave now. This is what a lot of the modern devices are going to, and they'll either have a default network address, or they'll have a thing where you can display the address on the device. On this one here, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on the device. it's going to boot up, and when it's doing its boot up sequence, it's going to give me its what's programmed into it right now for its internet IP address. And I'm going to write that down on a piece of paper so that I have it, and then we're going to go into the computer itself. I'll switch cameras here and go into the PC camera and see how we get that configured and set up to let the PC connect to this device using its embedded web page. Now there's two ways that the PC can connect to this device. We can connect to it using a crossover cable, which I'll go over in the video. I'll show you a diagram. Or we can use a little switch and two regular patch cables. Right now I'm going to go ahead and turn the device on, and I'll let you see when it boots up here that it's going to give its IP address. I went ahead and written it down on a little piece of paper right here, to make it easy. And there you can see it's booting up. There's this IP address, and now it's booted up. So now that we know the IP address, we're going to go in here on the laptop, set up the Ethernet port so that it can be in the same range and connect to it. So I'm going to transition now to the PC camera, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, we're back at the computer, and I have a little diagram set up of what we're trying to accomplish. What we're looking to do is connect the PC here with the Telex IP-223 over here, and we want to be able to use the web browser on this PC to look at the embedded web page on this device. And we're going to connect this device and the PC using an Ethernet crossover cable from Ethernet port to Ethernet port. And if you look at the Ethernet cables, and I'm talking about the old school 10100 base, not the super fast 1 gig stuff, but just the classic Cat5 standard cabling. They only use 4 out of the 8 wires, 2 for transmit and 2 for receive, and most of the patch cables are just straight through cables. You can configure a cable, however, to be what's called a crossover cable, to connect 2 devices directly together without using a switch in between, where you run the pair of transmit wires directly to the receive on the other side, and vice versa, coming back the other way. So that's what I'm utilizing right here, and it's really easy to make. All you have to do is do the A standard on one side and the B standard on the other, and it forms the crossover pattern. I wanted to talk about real quick before I get into the Ethernet configuration of the PC and showing you how to go into the web browser to set that up. But I wanted to just make quick mention of MAC addresses on both devices, and I want to bring that up because anytime you're hooking up IP devices to each other, ultimately they can only communicate if they know each other's MAC address, and the IP addresses are not enough. Those have to be resolved to get the actual MAC addresses. So I wanted to talk about when we're over here on this PC and we enter in the IP address of 13027 here, and we hit enter. What's going to happen, we hope, is that this computer will send out a message to this IP address saying, hey, show me your embedded web page that you have inside, so I can display it on my computer screen and show all the settings and everything that's inside you. But it can't do it immediately because it doesn't know the MAC address of the IP-223. So I just wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to pull up the little Wireshark that I did on it so you can see. When it first starts out, the PC, and the PC is this Pegatron here, it sends a message out to MAC address all Fs, which is a broadcast message, and it's asking, hey, does anybody out there have the IP address .27? If you do, please tell me at this IP address here. So the Telex device hears the call from the PC, and it has the IP address of the PC, and it also has the MAC address. So it responds back to that MAC address saying, hey, that's me, and this is my MAC ID, ending in 9D7D. Once they know each other's MAC address and they're on the same LAN, then they can begin the formal communications back and forth with each other that they're going to need to display the information there on the web page. But I wanted to show that to you because it's really relevant and helpful when you're learning about IP communications, to keep that in mind, that anytime you send a packet out, you have to either have a MAC address of a device that's on your LAN, the MAC address of your gateway, or you're going to have to send out all Fs asking anybody for their number. And I like to think of it like the IP address is like a cell phone number that you have, but you can get a new cell phone number and change it. But your MAC address is like your social security number. It's supposed to be uniquely yours and yours for life, that no other device is supposed to have. So just keep that in mind if you ever look at how packets actually go back and forth. They're always addressed from one MAC address to the next, because that's really the only way they can work. But anyway, back to our PC here. We saw the IP address of the device we wanted to talk to. So what we need to do is we need to assign an IP address that's close but not the same as the IP address of the device we want to talk to. So in order to do that, we have to get in here under our network connections and change the values. So if you go into your network connections and go to your Ethernet, and then go to your Ethernet properties, you'll see your slide down here. And what we want to do is we want to right click on it, go to properties, then we're going to come over to the TCP IPv4, and we're going to go properties there. And this is what it would, for most people, this is what that would normally look like. This setup is for getting DHCP, where you're basically relying on the server to automatically assign you an IP address, and also giving you the domain name service here, which is another form of translation. It basically changes a name like yahoo.com into an actual IP address. But for what we need to do, we only need to change just the IP address, and we're going to go ahead and assign ourselves the new address of 130.28, and it automatically fills your subnet mask here. I'm just going to leave it the same. Basically, what this is it shows how big a network your local network is, and depending on the address that you typed into your browser, it would know whether it could communicate with it, try and communicate with it directly, or if it was out of its mask, it would need to go to the gateway to get it to help it to get to the next wherever the destination IP address resides. But in our case, all we're going to need is just put in that 28, and we're going to hit OK, and we're going to hit close. And now the PC and the IP-223 are connected together. Minimize that and go. Now if I go into my web browser and I come in here and I enter my IP address of the IP-223 and hit enter, I should hopefully be able to get a connection here. And this is a great example of finding out, well, why am I not getting connected? And I found the cause of the problem. I'm not entering in the right address. So that tends to cause problems there. So we're going to go 9197.130.27. Now let's give this one a try. Ah, there we are. Okay. Now, so what just happened there is when I hit enter and it went over and found and communicated with the IP-223, it basically said, hey, will you display, give me the graphics in order to display a screen that shows the contents of what's inside you? And that's what it did. And now when I click in the multicast address setup button here, it went over and once again said, hey, can you update my screen information here and give me this information that I'm looking for here. So it looks remarkably like that you're on the internet and that you're looking at some kind of web page of some sort, but you aren't. You're looking at a page that's programmed onto a chip inside the device. So once you get past that confusion and understand where you're at, it makes things a lot easier. Just like when you're on yahoo.com, yahoo.com is not on your display in your computer. You have just a remote connection to the server in San Jose, and you're looking at Yahoo in San Jose through your computer, but it's not Yahoo that's on your computer. You've just got a long telescope looking at the one in San Jose. But anyway, once you get in now, like I said, it's just a matter of entering in the number here to see the different setups that you have for all your gains, anything that you want to change. It can now all be done through this setup. So, and a lot of these, like this one, if you do have something, you have to still go over here to the save to EEPROM and then save the parameters. But this is your basic web portal setup, and like I said, it's the rage. It's what a lot of devices are doing now. So if you have no way of looking at a display and getting what the default, what the current IP address is, you can always go to the manual, look up the what the default IP address will be for the device if you can't display it. Some of them, if it's a used device and it's already been programmed, You may have to reset it to the factory because you just don't know what IP address it's at now, and it's impossible to get back into the programming screen without resetting it. But anyway, that's the that's your web-based screens inside the products. Hope that helps. Talk to you soon.